All right, calling to order the Planning and Zoning meeting, Commission meeting for the City of Hayden, Idaho. Today is Monday, November the 7th, last time I checked. Can we get a roll call of our commission members, please?
Brandon Bemis.
Here.
Alan Davis.
Present.
Keith Gibson.
Present.
Mary Howard. Present. Ben Prickett.
Here.
And Sean Taylor is absent.
Okay, we know who's here. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Keith, would you mind kicking it off for us, please?
Yep.
Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any additions or corrections tonight, Donna?
Yeah, I think that there's some order, something, let's see, hold on, I have to look at the agenda. I think that when we get down here to the calendar, we talked about possibly changing the meeting dates. We've talked about that before, but it comes after the approval of the overall calendar, and I think they were supposed to be flip-flopped.
Okay, I'm driving off the board book here, and it just has two items, which is approval of October 17th P&Z meeting minutes and a written decision for PZE 22.
I'm all the way down in 5 under
you're-
new business.
Okay.
That was an agenda item.
Okay,
And I would like to flip-flop those two items in their order.
so we should do the approval of the 2023 calendar first?
No, second.
Okay, got it. After 2 and before 3, I understand.
Thank you.
All right, so next item that we'll tackle here is the consent calendar, which consists of approval of October 17th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes and approval of the written decision for PZE 22-0125 Bingham Zone Map Amendment. Is there any need for discussion, or somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody nay? Very good. All right, now we'll skip over to B. Next item is new business, which is approval of the
Motion is approved.
2023 calendar for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting days.
That's what I said.
Yeah?
I think that is still to be after the public hearing. You just need to flip-flop 5A and 5AI.
Oh, I misunderstood that too.
Sorry.
Sorry.
5A.
So you want to discuss your Planning and Zoning Commission meeting days and times before
You approve
you
the
approve the
calendar.
calendar.
Okay. Because they were subbed, I just was lumping them together.
You mean you didn't want the public hearing to just sit around and wait?
No, I think that we'll get them going first.
All right, fair enough. We'll jump into 3A then, which is PZE 220128, which is care zone map amendment request. Before we do that, do we have any calls for conflicts of interest with any of the commissioners tonight?
I do not.
None.
I got no across the board. Thank you very much. Okay. My goodness. Chaos reigns.
So we're going to tackle PZE 220128, the Curzon map amendment, and PZE 220129, Trail Creek Estates subdivision concurrently like we did a couple meetings ago.
Oh, okay.
And so we'll have one PowerPoint and one public hearing proposed. And then
Okay.
we'll have separate findings at the end.
All right, we can do that. So, thank you.
So to get a bearing of where we're talking about the northeast corner of North Ramsey Road and West Dakota Avenue. The development team, applicant and engineer of record are Eric Olson from Olson Engineering. Jeremy Trujilli is in the back to present on behalf of the owners, Justin and Laurel Curl, and Justin's in the back as well. Again, just so we can kind of, see where we're at. We're talking about a zone map amendment that's looking at the differences between the existing zone being residential suburban and a proposed zone of mixed residential. And so the request before you is first through the Kerr zone map amendment to amend the zone map to mixed residential from residential suburban. And should that zone map amendment request to mixed residential zone designation, concurrent with that request is a subdivision request to be approved for the preliminary plat as was in your staff reviews for a total of 25 dwelling units on 25 lots. And so 12 lots are proposed as attached single-family homes or 6 structures over 12 lots. So a 0 lot line setback. And 13 lots are proposed as detached single-family homes. And I only make that comment because based on some of the public comments that we received and then the memo, I tried to clarify that again with the memo that you received. So this is a 25 lot subdivision request for 2 different housing types, all single-family residential. This is their proposed plat. And I kind of just showed that, colored that picture that I had put in your memo. That, I believe, I'm passing it to Jeremy. You probably can do a much better job explaining that than I did.
Good evening, Chair Davis, Commissioners. Jeremy Terzulli. I am a project coordinator with Olson Engineering based in Post Falls, Idaho. I'm here to discuss Justin and Laurel Kerr's proposal tonight for a zone map amendment and a subsequent subdivision. So, as Donna pointed out, we're going to try to run these things concurrently. We thought it would be really helpful to sort of outline what our proposed subdivision is and how it fits into the neighborhood context, as well as the future land use map and the subdivision approval criteria. So starting first with the zone map amendment, we have the basic criteria that we go through that's been adopted by the city. And number 1 is the proposed zone map amendment consistent with the future land use map? And the future land use map identifies the property as mixed residential. That is the zoning designation that we are requesting tonight. So that's a simple yes. With regard to consistency with the comprehensive plan goals and policies, I believe there's about 24 goals and policies outlined in the comprehensive plan in the city of Hayden. I've pulled out 5 that I think are pretty, that sort of support what we're proposing here with this amendment. They speak a lot about the land uses, different housing types. Number 1, these are direct quotes out of the comprehensive plan to maintain attractive and balanced mix of land uses, density, and housing types. And you'll see when I move to the subdivision portion of this, that that's exactly what we're proposing here is 2 very specific different housing types. The city of Hayden encouraging development within city limits before they start to look at the periphery and annexing in. This is absolutely an infill piece right along Ramsey. And we felt that it was prime for redevelopment. Ensuring that the development can be serviced by existing or by reasonably extending infrastructure, and it does. We've had multiple conversations with city engineer, Public Works Department, and different agencies, and the infrastructure is readily available. So we feel it checks that box pretty well. 4th one I have up here is again talking about quality housing, different housing options and density. And then what I think is very critical in the city of Hayden would be to minimize financial impacts resulting from road improvement projects and maintenance. One of the greatest tools that the city has at their disposal to have infrastructure paid for is to have somebody else do it. And in this instance, right-of-way dedication, sidewalks, street widening if needed, approaches and pulling of infrastructure like water, sewer, and those types of things would all be done through this development. Another one of our approval criteria is to address the community needs. And does this project do that? I think one of the biggest community needs right now is additional housing to the city of Hayden, and specifically entry-level housing. I know that that's sort of a subjective definition here, but this was a direct swing to bring a couple of different housing types to a single parcel within that mixed residential zoning designation. So we believe we're accomplishing that goal. Consider the community health, safety, and general welfare. Some of the bullet points I have outlined here would be that all design standards will be met through this subdivision, and I'm going to get into that a little further in the subdivision component of this. Eliminating an aging single-family septic system over the aquifer is something that Panhandle Health District is a big advocate of, so we would be accomplishing that, as well as adding to the potential for pedestrian connectivity throughout the city, getting in at least a quarter of an ADA accessible crossing here at this intersection. We believe those are items that are a direct benefit to the community's health, safety, general welfare. And then the final approval criteria is this request, does it align with the zone district's purpose and intent? If rezoned, and you'll see when I get into the subdivision aspect of this, that yes, mixed residential is directly intended to bring a couple of different housing components onto a single parcel or within a single area of the city with a maximum density of 8 units per acre, and you'll see that we're accomplishing that and then some. So we have about 6 pages of city code that talk about subdivisions and the criteria that we're held to when doing those subdivisions. Rather than copy and paste that, I sort of summarized what all the criteria are when we're doing a subdivision, and specifically a residential subdivision. And item 1 talks a lot about infrastructure. Are water and sewer available? And they are nearby. We've had multiple conversations with the city, with Hayden Lake Irrigation District, and we have a plan for those 2 things. Can the infrastructure be constructed in a timely and orderly manner? And yes, it can. And is it in compliance with local, state, federal design standards? And I'm going to kind of outline sort of how this process plays out from beginning to end. So any of you that haven't been through the process, member of the public, I'm pretty sure the commissioners kind of generally know how this works, but to sort of outline that the city engineer, the public works director, and all the agencies are very much involved in this process from the time we sit with them at a pre-development meeting until we actually mobilize equipment onto a site, that all of these things are designed and built to the standards applicable, and that the city oversees all of that stuff. Speaks also to provisions for things like stormwater, snow storage, utilities, driveway locations, mailbox locations, and it goes on and on and on. And the short answer to all of these is yes. All these provisions have been made to accommodate all of these things. With regard to the transportation plan, and again, I'll outline kind of how the process works and how we align our streets. It isn't just guesswork. There's a master transportation plan that we have to refer to with regard to where we connect to adjacent subdivisions, where we're going to funnel traffic out onto different roads that surround this, whether or not we would have access based on road classifications. There's an awful lot of dialogue that goes before we come before you, and then ultimately before we go to an approvable plan set. So I'll go over that a little bit more. And then to ensure that the public isn't going to pay any more than their fair share. And so the way that is accomplished is through things like the application fees, the review fees, dedication of parks if needed, dedication of right-of-way, impact fees to the fire department, to emergency medical services, those types of things, hookup fees to the water district, to the sewer district, designing and construction of all of the public infrastructure, that's all borne by the developer. The city reviews those, but they don't really participate in the design of that. That is the responsibility of the developer to hire his professionals to do that. And then as well as during construction, performance and surety bonds being in place so that once the infrastructure is taken over by the city, that there is a time period at which, if anything fails, the developer will actually pay for any of those failures. So sort of how this process plays out is a developer will either own a piece of property or decide to get into contract on a piece of property, will come before the city, your city staff. Don is there, Rob's usually there, sometimes Alan is there. We'll discuss what we're trying to accomplish on a particular piece of property. We'll see if there are any land use actions that are appropriate or needed to accomplish the end goal, which in this case is a residential subdivision. We would be required to do the zone map amendment. Had the citywide zone map amendment gone through, this thing would have been zoned properly and we could have, in essence, skipped that step and just be here for the subdivision approval. But we go through all that sort of stuff, and then the developer will kick off his team. In this case, it's Olson Engineering. We sit down, we start to design what we think the project is. We'll bounce those ideas back and forth between city staff. We'll ask the engineer. In this case, we did make a request for access or for one of our connection roads to be on Ramsey Road. City engineer deemed that that was not appropriate and that Ramsey was too high of a classification, and basically come up with a new plan. So we go back to the drawing board and start to redesign it. Along the way, we are initiating conversation with the fire chief, with the water district, with DEQ if needed, with Panhandle Health District if needed. We're going all through this. And at this stage of the project, the developer is paying his engineering team all along the way to be having these conversations and to be designing this project. At which point we put forth an application. We pay a fee for that application. When all the mailing labels go out so that all of these people were notified that there is a public hearing coming up, the developer pays for that as well. And then you might think, well, but if you get your approval, then, city staff actually has to dig in and start reviewing what you're doing. Well, on top of that, we have an application for the subdivision. We pay for review fees, so the city engineer actually charges us to review our plans. He hasn't designed them. He or she is just going to review them. If they decide aspects of the subdivision are outside of their purview, they will outsource that to another agency to review those plans. They send us a bill for that, so that gets paid for. And then if we go all the way through the approval process, we will sit down with the public works director, with the city engineer, with the contractor, with the developer, and we'll have what's called a pre-construction conference, which says, you've designed all this, we've approved all this, we agree with your alignments on these things, we agree with your connection here, you're gonna pull sewer up this road, we're not gonna orphan a few parcels along the way, so you're gonna create those tying connections on that sewer line. And then through that pre-construction conference, we establish what's going to be built and what the standard is it'll be built to. Then at that point, the city actually requires full-time oversight by the engineer of record for the project. So the developer will then pay for one of the engineers to be on site during all of the construction of this process. Draw a map and design plans, call them as-built drawings, which will then all be submitted to the city at the end of the project, put forth a surety bond and a performance bond that says all of this infrastructure was built to standard and will hold up. So through this whole process, the developer gets one freebie, and that is the initial pre-development meeting. From that point forth, he pays for everything. oversight of the project, design of the project, review of the project, and then a year and a half later, as long as everything holds up, he's allowed to get his bond back. At that point, the city will take over responsibility of the infrastructure and they'll start to maintain it. So the city and the community has not footed the bill for any of this until such time that some rooftops are available, and hopefully that the taxes from those new residents will help pay for maintenance of this project. So just for your own benefit and anybody that's here that thinks that the developer is not paying their fair share, hopefully I'm able to outline that they do pay quite a bit along the way. And at no point does the taxpayer pay for any of this until such time that the infrastructure has been deemed to be part of the city. So as Donna pointed out, this is our conceptual plan that we're hoping to get approval of tonight. Down here to the south is going to be twin home lots. Each one of these lots, we're going to have the party wall there. So as Donna pointed out, single structure on 2 lots. This isn't a duplex. Each unit can and will be marketed to be for sale. We're hoping that it's going to be a lower cost point than the typical detached single-family residence. We got these ones up here as well that are twin homes. And then around the perimeter and here are going to be your more traditional single-family dwellings. So 13 single-family detached, 12 single-family twin home, 25 total for a overall density of right around 4 units per acre. This is the same thing, and I believe this was on Donna's slide as well, which shows sort of the proposed footprint. Understand that this isn't what we're proposing at this point in time. The engineer provides this for the developer to see what his maximum building footprint could be based on rear, front, and side yard setbacks. And so we sort of gave an example on each one of the unique lots as to what could be built on each. And so those are the criteria that I have. I feel like we've checked every box on that criteria perfectly. I feel like this fits the comprehensive plan perfectly. We're not asking for any variances from code. We're simply asking for what falls in line with the future land use map, the comprehensive plan, and your subdivision criteria. With that, here for any questions.
Commissioners have anything for the applicant? Nope. No, sir.
Thank you, folks.
No.
We used to have it here.
So I'll try and marathon through these 2 staff reviews. So the first staff review that we're here to look at is the zone map amendment request from residential suburban to mixed residential. And so this is the summary of that staff review. For the first 2 standards of approval for zone map amendment, based on the applicant's proposal, staff didn't believe that additional studies or plans were necessary and didn't believe that a zoning development agreement was required. Future land use map and goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. By definition, the mixed residential land use designation in the comprehensive plan accommodates that range of structures between 1 dwelling, 2 dwelling, and 3 dwellings, as well as accessory structures where you have single-family dwellings. Goals and policies of comprehensive plan can be found on page 4 of the staff review and appendix of the staff review in their entirety, and I'm not going to go over them here. With respect to the zone map amendment, it shall align with the zone district's purpose and intent. So today, the property is zoned residential suburban. And that zone provides for single-family residential on larger lots and minimal agricultural uses. The proposal mixed residential zone designation, which again is almost verbatim of what the land use designation in the comprehensive plan is. 1 dwelling, 2 dwellings, 3 dwelling structures, as well as accessory dwelling units on individual lots. The setback and lot coverage table comparison is shown on page 6 of your staff review. And general infrastructure requirements will be addressed at the time of development. Notices were sent to about 20 agencies, and we received 6 comments back. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District provided their comments on November 1st. That's why they weren't included in your staff review, but you do have them here tonight in paper copy. The Coeur d'Alene Airport responded with no comments, but requested an navigation easement. Kootenai Electric, Panhandle Health, and IDQ had no comments. Hayden Lake Irrigation District stated that they fully supported the proposed amendment. And the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District had comments related to the time of subdivision development. Questions on the zone map? Okay. So the subdivision request is for 25 single-family residential lots. 12 of those are for single-family, 0 lot line or attached single-family twin homes. And 13 of those lots are single-family detached. So 25 dwellings on 6.441 acres is 3.88 dwelling units per acre. I think we would be remiss if we didn't say that if you multiplied the maximum density that's allowed in the mixed residential of 8 by 6.441, you get 51 dwelling units 51 total dwelling units versus 25 that is being proposed here. If you were to also look at this as an R1 residential zone, you would get at 4 dwelling units per acre gross. But with the roadway design and roadway configuration requirements, you can't meet that minimum lot size, which is hence why we looked at and staff looked at the opportunity of mixed residential. So just from a density perspective to put that into proportion. So for subdivisions, we've got 8 standards of approval. And throughout a variety of the staff review, you see how we evaluate for public health, safety, and welfare. And we also look at how infrastructure can be constructed and located in that orderly manner. So standard number 3 talks about infrastructure is or will be in compliance with applicable city, state, federal policies and regulations. I think that the applicant did a good job covering that. But we did receive will-serve letters from Hayden Lake Irrigation District, which basically state that they have the ability and willingness to provide water to this project site. We have a will-serve letter in the packet that was provided by the City of Hayden on September 14th. And we have the comments from Northern Lakes Fire Protection District. The project site is located in what will become the H6 sewer basin. And the Moonridge Estates property to the north is stubbed to the south in anticipation of this property connecting. And I'm going to pull up a diagram of that in just a minute. Staff has also identified that sewer adjacent to this subdivision within the Dakota Avenue right-of-way, south of this project, shall be constructed at the time of any future development. And stormwater and snow storage has to meet Title 8 in Hayden City Code, which means that it has to remain on the site and be mitigated on the site itself. So what does that mean? And I know this picture is a little bit big, but I kind of wanted to give you a bigger picture than not. So the proposal is to put this subdivision here and kind of compare it to the Moonridge subdivision directly to the north. Moonridge, Hubble Street, North Hubble Street, was proposed to extend south, and Ulysses is anticipated to extend east. Those are stubbed out specifically in the anticipation that those bigger lots with the bigger property that's vacant in the backs of those lots are going to need to connect. And you want to have that connectivity. You don't want to have subdivisions that are just kind of in and of themselves and you have to look over the fence to get to the other guy. As Mr. Tuzuli noted, limitations onto Ramsey Road are very much part of the conversation. We have a transportation access policy that was approved that limits or restricts the number of access points you can have based on the classification of the roadway. So Ramsey Road is fully anticipated in this neck of the woods to be 3 lanes wide with a center turn lane in the middle, 1 lane each direction at this point. And Dakota Avenue is anticipated to be a collector street. So it's a less intense roadway to connect to. So that's where this would connect to the south, but it would have no access onto Ramsey Road. Sewer, this is a sewer lift station right there. And that lift station was put in with the anticipation that it would serve other parcels as they connected into this subdivision, both from the south and from the east. So it was part of the plan. Eventually, it won't go from this lift station out to the treatment plant, but it will move into the H6 basin and be pumped from the H6 basin.
Donna,
H6 basin isn't built yet.
to the west, are those barns or are those buildings?
That's A to Z storage.
Storage, okay, thank you.
So where is the H6 going to be built in relation to this?
Just to the south of the storage
To the
units there.
west,
Just,
to the west. Yeah, somewhere.
oh, okay,
Right there.
okay, yes,
Yeah.
all right, I see it, thank you.
The new H6 sewer lift station is proposed to go west of Ramsey Road in this location. I don't believe so. I think that's a permanent lift station. And generally speaking, I'm not supposed to answer questions for the crowd, but good question, so I answered them. Okay, just for my clarification, I just wanted to kind of give that some boots on the ground. So street names and addressing are reviewed by the city and the fire department and Kootenai County Emergency Systems when we go to plat, and we have a policy of no duplicate road names in the county, because our emergency service providers service more than the city of Hayden. We want to ensure that they can find our Hayden residents. Ramsey Road shall be constructed to a half width of a modified C2 typical section. And Dakota shall be constructed to that C1 typical section. An internal public street shall be built to that ST 111 and 111A. Which just means that those are standard typical sections that are already adopted in the transportation plan and the standard city policies. And they have specific widths. The reason this one says modified is because it is going into an intersection at Dakota and Ramsey, so it's slightly different than just the typical if you were on the straightaway. All required street improvements shall be in accordance with current city standard drawings. Many people think that the streets are just the pavement, but it's the pavement, the curbs, the swales, the sidewalks, pedestrian paths, all of that. Geohazard shall be reviewed during construction plan review. Most people think their land is flat or they live on the prairie and it's flat, but as you're doing construction, you need to ensure that your stormwater is staying on your site and that any sloping and stormwater, what have you, is being addressed. And so it is a safety standard that we make sure of when we're doing our subdivision review. No parcel shall have access primary or secondary, which means if you have a house that faces an internal street and somebody wants to put a shop and access it from Ramsey or access from Dakota, I get to be the big guy that says no, which is a terrible thing part of the time. It makes sense for the lot, but it is not allowed. The post office really likes to have mailbox locations on all the collectors on the arterials, and the city really doesn't like to have them there. And so we have gotten to the point where we're really requesting that they maintain locations on internal streets, and that's a safety issue. So the existing zones, which is standard number 7, identifies does a subdivision work for the zone that it's proposed. And so this is a subdivision request based on an approval of the zone map amendment request. So today it's residential suburban, which is a single family on residential, on larger lots with minimum agricultural uses. These minimum lot sizes are half an acre. These are not those. The proposed zone for mixed residential is again that range of uses. And the setback tables can be found on page 5 of the staff review. I brought them up here because I just wanted, they're requesting 2 types of housing structures in the subdivision, single family and twin homes. And twin homes don't allow for an accessory dwelling unit, whereas an accessory dwelling unit isn't allowed use in the single family home. But there are constraints, there are some constraints to that. If you wanted to put a accessory dwelling unit on one of the houses, on one of the lots with a single family residence, you have to meet the setbacks required. You also have to meet the maximum lot coverage requirement. And many times the houses are at that or really close to that maximum coverage off that. You also have to meet additional accessory dwelling unit design standards that are in the code, which have a clear zone on the side of the house that you have to meet for fire requirements, that has a height restriction and a width restriction. You can only access from the one access that you're allowed per lot. So there are a variety of other standard designs that you have to meet. So just want to make sure that we're all aware of that fact. And this one here is in the staff review, but it recognizes that if you put a shop in and then you wanted to put an accessory dwelling unit in that shop, that you would have if you put it in the second story, you would have an additional setback on the second story of that shop. So a lot of people think, oh, I'll put a bonus room above my shop. It doesn't always work out that way because you can't meet the setback requirements. The twin homes recognize the fact that it's a 0 lot line on one boundary. And it also recognizes that you want a front yard setback and a rear yard setback. The reason that 25 feet has a 2 beside it is because we recognize that we wanted people to have the flexibility in mixed residential because oftentimes they want alley access or they want to have 2 different access points on skinnier lots. And so we recognize the fact that we wanted a 25-foot setback from the property line to the garage, but not necessarily. That garage might be in the front or the back. I don't think that really fits any of these lots specifically, unless they're corner lots. It might, I don't know. Anyway, so it allows some flexibility that you can push those houses front and back, depending on where you put the garages. Anyway, I just wanted to explain the footnotes that were in the staff review. Goals and policies of the comprehensive plan start on page 8 of the subdivisions. And although they're similar to the ones that you saw in the staff review for the zone map amendment, they are different. I think that Mr. Chuzuli hit most of them. I did want to point out a couple. And that was the one that down here that says ensure that land use and zoning compatibility related to development, density, and type occurs in close proximity to the Coeur d'Alene Airport. The Coeur d'Alene Airport had no comments. So I wanted to point out that they had the opportunity to review this. They looked at the proposal and they had no comments. So I think that plays into that policy, that goal and policy. So then all on-site and off-site improvement shall be required of the developer and the extension of infrastructure per the adopted city code, standards and plans, and mitigating improvements as required. And I think Mr. Chuzuli talked about that too. So again, we noticed those same 20 agencies. We did hear back. Same general comments were heard. They were pretty much similar for both. We did receive public comments that came back, written comments that were in your memo to the Planning and Zoning Commission. A to Z Storage was in support. Mr. Fox, which I think that his is the one that says see the reverse. I did ask him because we didn't have a reverse to see it was blank. He did just mention that he owns 2 homes along that same street and the same comment applied to both homes. Mr. Watson was opposed. He feels that duplexes will increase the traffic population by too much. And then, again, no duplexes are here. They're all single-family residential, and that might have been caught in that context. When the 12 twin homes came up, I emailed the applicant. I said, are we talking 24 dwelling units or are we talking 12? And it's 12. So it's not an easy brain works with your body there. Anyway, and then Mr. Scott was all about responsible growth, and his comments were included in their entirety as well.
So Donna, on
That's
Mr.
fine.
Scott, on that one right there, if he understood that it was not 12 duplexes, but it was 12 twin homes, which means it's 12 individual homes, he may have revoked that statement.
Potentially.
Well, it says the first sentence says he's not opposed to 25 single-family units.
Right. But then, okay, it's just that he didn't understand.
Which would not be rezoned, right? With 25 single family, it would be rezoned.
You do, because it's zoned residential suburban today. Okay, so the staff recommended conditions of approval on page 9 of the staff review. I'm not going to go through all of those. Part of those are general in nature. It's pretty standard, the dedications and easements, permits from outside agencies. The approval runs with the land. Again, it is a condition. It will run with every piece of property that they do not get access onto West Dakota Avenue or North Ramsey Road, and all access points are approved by the city. The construction plan requirements, again, talk to those typical sections. It talks about those erosion control measures. Developer shall use Hayden sanitary sewer in accordance to the 2020 sewer master plan. Concurrence from the U.S. Postal Service. We require everybody to do a dry grass mix applied onto individual lots at the time of subdivision construction, because we don't want their topsoil to all blow away into the neighbors. So that's a requirement that not all other jurisdictions own. Swale construction, irrigation, and maintenance requirements, both for adjacent to the street or common swales if they occur. Street frontage landscaping requirements occur at the time of subdivision, but aren't actually put in until the time of building permit, because we kind of like our frontage landscaping to survive. So they're irrigated by each individual house at that point in time. Intersection spacing is a minimum of 250 feet for local access streets. And so road layouts may be required to be modified slightly to meet that requirement. And that's on our City of Hayden's website, so anybody can take a look at those standards. Any removal or demolition of the existing structures shall obtain the required permits. And should the existing residential dwelling unit remain, it shall be connected to the city sewer, and all required setbacks, driveway accesses, stormwater, all of those have to meet the standards. You can't create a non-conforming use with a subdivision. The site shall be reviewed under separate permit and not a part of the subdivision construction plan approvals should that residential site remain, or individual sites when they come in for building permits. So I have the standards of approval.
Donna, just
wanna
for
see 'em.
clarification with the commissioners, all of the city's conditions apply to 129,
Correct.
not 128.
That's correct. Good clarification. So the Planning and Zoning Commission shall make findings and a recommendation based on the zone map amendment. The approval, the commission could add conditions or a denial of the zone map amendment request. And then based on the 220129, that's Trail Creek Estates subdivision, you can approve it with staff recommended conditions of approval. You can approve it with conditions, so you can amend the conditions that we've got and add some, delete some, or modify them. Or you can deny the request for the preliminary plat approval of the Trail Creek Estates subdivision. You have questions for me?
Any commissioners have any questions? do
I do. Can you clarify lot sizes? I understand that the overall density is much less doing it this way versus more dwellings per, yeah. So in the multi-residential
Mixed use.
or mixed residential, thank you. the minimum lot size is 5,500
For a single family.
for a single family. So how do we calculate what a
Detached.
twin home?
It's a detached, single-family residence.
Right.
A twin home is a type of townhome. They
Okay.
don't have a minimum lot size. Because the density is what controls.
Because the density
The
control.
density is what controls, and the market needs are what control.
Okay. Okay.
Donna, you were talking about the road accessibility, and they're only going to be able to access down onto Lacey, not out to Ramsey. But just looking at the plat map, was it Hubble? The main road, looks like it's going to access into the neighborhood to the north,
Correct.
which has access to Ramsey. Is that correct? Okay.
So it's not a new access point into Ramsey.
It's just it's connecting to something that exists.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
What slide would you like me to leave up?
Probably 128 standards of approval, but we don't need a second, but
Do you want the standard? I think that we have copies of the standards of approval for everybody. Do you want me to leave this one up so they can talk to it?
that's fine.
Okay.
If we need a different slide, thanks.
Does everybody have standards of approval from the back? The only reason I say that is that when they're making their findings, it's on the back of subdivision 1, it's 2 pages, and the zone map is the single page. And when the Planning and Zoning Commission makes their decision, they're going to be
Gonna borrow mine?
making those findings, they're going to be making findings based on those standards of approval. Before you. So it helps them make findings if you can kind of tailor your comments to them. So the standards for subdivision. The, and then the zone map amendment is
Sorry, probably get them mixed use.
No, it's residential.
Okay,
Yeah, big difference.
so anyone who wants to offer comments regarding the cases, please submit a completed form located on the table by the entrance doors. Form must have name, address, and date, whether you want to testify in support of, opposed to, or neutral. Anyone planning to speak must do so at the podium so the remarks can be heard in the recording system. All questions and comments will be directed to us, the commission, not to the applicant, and the applicant will have the opportunity to answer questions and offer a rebuttal after all public testimony is completed. All speakers will need to state their name and address for the record before they begin speaking. And I will first call those supporting the application, then those uncommitted, and finally those opposed to the application. Is anybody that wishes to speak, are they already filled out a form? I don't have anybody sitting there that wants to speak that hasn't filled out a form? Okay, I'm hearing no, so we'll move to Christine.
Commissioner, Chair,
Sorry?
person.
Yes, I have a number of forms here. Yes.
For those of you who haven't filled out a
Yeah, I
form,
apologize. I meant if there was somebody sitting in the audience that wanted to fill out a form that hadn't. Christine, I'm not sure, is it Vona? Okay, you're up.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
You got to go to the podium.
yeah, I'm speaking.
If there's not enough room, you can shove the podium. Okay.
And if you'd start with your name and address
I'm
for us, please.
Christine Vona, and I live on Olympus Avenue. 1558 West Olympus Avenue, right next to the lifting station.
Okay.
And I was really upset when they built all those horrible storage units across the street. And now I feel like we're being hit again, and I'm like, are these duplexes gonna be high up? Because I'm a rancher, I'm in one level, which I like for getting around. And I'd just like to know that.
Okay, so it could be that the applicant may answer that question when they have a chance to offer rebuttal. I haven't seen a house design, so I certainly
Yeah,
can't.
I got it. The other question I had is I feel that because of the drive-through or ride-through, whatever you want to call it, that's going to affect our property values. And I've been there 11 years already, and I don't want to see that happen. So can you tell me, and when does this actually start to be the ground broken? Because it sounds like you've already all decided to go with it.
Well, no one's decided anything yet, but again, the applicant will hopefully answer when they're planning on breaking ground, if this is approved
Okay.
in the rebuttal.
And I want to know what happens to our taxes. I'm a widow of 4 months, so I want to know what happens to our taxes.
That's probably a question for the city, yes?
First of all, it's public comment period. It's really not a time for asking questions,
Sure.
but she certainly could inquire of staff at a later time to determine whether or not there would be any effect to taxes.
Yeah, so to be more articulate and for the folks that are planning to speak, this is not a question and answer thing. It's good for you to have questions.
Yes.
And so my response was meant to try to point you into a resource not within the bounds of this meeting. So as our city attorney has indicated, outside of this meeting, if you have a question on taxes, talk to the city.
What? Yeah, I'm wondering if my property value, which has been pretty good and healthy for me, it's my main asset. I'd like to know, does this mean that property values are going to go down? Because you're having new people coming through where we are and, yeah, because it's going to mix now. And I just wonder, can I see into my house? Because they're up. I'm on 1 floor, 1 story, which I like. I have to be. So I'd like to know that too.
Okay.
And then, yeah, the fire department, how do they feel about this?
Well, we
They
did.
come quite a bit into our area, quite a bit.
Yep. Thank
Fire
you.
department, do they approve of this?
Well, again, we don't answer questions directly. It's more to hear concerns and
Okay. Well, I'm concerned about my property value, tanky, which has
understand.
been very healthy. And I'm the last house built in Moon Acres, and I take pride in my house, and I just don't want it to be affected, my home value affected.
If it was single-family homes, we probably wouldn't feel that way.
I wonder how close they're gonna come to my fence.
So it's public comment period. It's not time for dialogue with the audience.
Well, I just wondered how far does it come to my fence line?
The applicant will have an opportunity to rebut
Okay.
at the end
All
and
right.
answer
Thank
any
you.
of those questions.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Vern Fitzgerald,
Neutral on that again.
and is against the proposal.
It's not had any support here.
Good evening. My name is Vern Fitzgerald. I've lived in this community all my life.
Could you give us your address, please?
999 West Dakota,
Thank you.
Hayden. I've moved 660 feet in my life from one side of the pasture to the other. And I lived here when this is a great place to live. Now, this is the last piece of property. I'll be surrounded by subdivisions. Okay, my acreage is the piece there with the trees on it. I had, but
Is that to the west or
To the east.
to the
to the
east.
east?
And the thing of it is, I initially had not didn't really want to say anything, because in the past, in dealing with this is pretty cut and dried. You don't really get anywhere. But the more I heard, the more I wanted to talk. There was a comment made earlier about this zone change. And if the comprehensive zone planning deal had been properly passed to start with, they wouldn't have had to gone through this part of it. Well, what's to say that it wasn't? It's the fact that it was the people that didn't want it because they won. What's to say, you know, that it wasn't properly done? The developer pays. The developer pays and he pays and he pays and he pays and pays. They divide the property up. They sell it for an exorbitant amount of money. Then after 1 year, they get it all done. After 1 year, they can take the profits from that, which are going to be quite a lot, and they can take and walk away and go live somewhere else. And those of us that live here, now we get to start paying for their development. And one of the things that we pay in is that the traffic is going to be sent out to a less intense roadway. Ramsey, you can't go out on Ramsey. The storage units can, but these houses can't. Let me talk to you about a less intense roadway. Y'all ought to live on Dakota. It is intense. Those people go flying by there. You would think that it was offshoot of Interstate 90. And all of this traffic and all the people who live there, every time they pull up to that intersection, it's going to be 50-50 whether I'm going to get a guy flying by my house. Now, and I see there's no provision there on the intersection on Ramsey and Dakota to maybe put in a roundabout. Roundabouts are all the big thing now. You know, I mean, and then I guess the biggest thing is that you have a nice subdivision, nice, slap my face, but there's single family dwellings all around there. There are no multiple dwellings. Why do we, I mean, and just because they can do it, I mean, I find it interesting that they said that there is no minimum lot size for a multiple family unit. You can put them in there, just shove them in just like sardines, as many as you can get, and whatever the market determines. It's too many people in that little area. And I mean, I don't mind people buying land and developing it, but I don't think that the rest of us should have to put up with them stuffing so many people in there. One of those roads should be named Sardine Land. Really. That's all I have to say. I mean, I wish them luck on their development. I just wish that they would do it in a little less aggressive manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern.
Thank you.
Next up, Rachel Scott wishes to speak and is against the proposal.
Hi, Rachel Scott, 1190 West Dakota Avenue. I have a couple of things about this proposal. I prefer they didn't use the word duplex. They used another smart home or something. I don't remember what they called it. But anyway, I'm not totally against the new subdivision coming in. I do wish it was all single-family homes because that would retain our value a little bit better. I know that the city is looking in 3 years to put either a light or a roundabout at Ramsey and Hayden, because if you ever driven down Hayden Road at 5 o'clock, it snails. And you're gonna add 50 more cars in this little subdivision to dump on to Ramsey and Dakota. As it is now, people are coming off of Hayden Avenue, zooming across at Atlas and zoom down Dakota. The speed limit is 25 And I bet you the average person is going 45 to 50 by the time they hit Reed Road. My dogs are very precious to me, and they're usually pretty good. Part of me thinks I should throw a ball in the street or something to slow those people down, or maybe the sheriff's office would like to show up once in a while and give tickets out because it definitely needs it. But like I said, I think this development is going to come sooner or later. I'd rather later, when Ramsey Road is more prepared to handle all of the traffic that's coming. 50 more cars in that little area. It's not feasible for the people that are left there. So that's all I have to say. And a roundabout would slow people down because it's not like beating the light around here. Everybody beats the light around about, they at least have to slow down. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. Tristan Fitzgerald wishes to speak is against the zone change.
Good evening. My name is Tristan Fitzgerald. I reside at 10035 North Reed Road. That was my dad that spoke just a moment ago. I'm third generation, North Idaho. I'm raising a fourth. I have 6 girls. And I agree with all the comments about people flying down that road. You know, I'm concerned about the traffic specifically, you know, on this, and and all the other developments, the apartments and everything else that would increase thoroughfare there is not good for my family. I do disagree, though, that I appreciate the sheriffs because they've been in our driveway and they've been writing tickets, and it's a lucrative business, so they can be there all the time. My little girls I brought them lemonade. So I almost didn't come tonight because, you know, I haven't been here. I need to be here more. I disagree with many of the things that are happening in the city, and I need to be a better citizen and make my views known. I don't believe I'm alone either. But I did come because I got to believe that you good people will listen to citizens' voices, and this isn't just a rubber stamp factory. So I do believe I got a lot of things here, and I know I'd rather be home with my family, and I know everyone here probably would voice the same. I do believe that Part B here, the city council, the plan is consistent with community needs. The gentleman who spoke used the correct word, subjective. I believe that it's subjective, and opinions on community needs are also potentially subjective. What I think this community needs, again, I've been here all my life. We need wide open spaces. We need places for kids and families to play. We need places that aren't developed and overdeveloped and too dense. And we do have a lot of land, and I'd like to keep it that way. I mean, I get to drive across the prairie and just see it get chopped up. And, you know, so I don't think that I think our community needs more than just housing. So I don't believe that B is met. I'd also like to bring issue with C, that it's in, you know, there's a lot of references to the 2040 plan. I read a little bit about that plan, and it said it's a living document and it's subject to change. And I'd like to propose that there be some changes to it. There's an inaccuracy in the plan, for example, in our land. We objected to the blanket zone change of our land, and we got that. So I was pleased. In the 2040 plan, ours is still you know, purple. So that's not what I see. That's not what I'm going to pass on to my kids. Hopefully, Lord willing. So I disagree with certain elements of that plan. So if we say that, you know, it's in you know, it's according to that plan, I think maybe some elements of that plan need to change. And as I'm doing some more research, I believe that there's others in the community that would agree with me. I'm against the densification of Hayden in general. Our zoning lead there said, oh, well, gosh, this one isn't so bad because, you know, it could be 50 houses per acre. Well, if we're putting up as a benefit, as a potential positive of less density, you know what's less dense? What is currently zoned. That's what's less dense, and I think it should stay there. We are, in a sense, as I understand it. Now, there's also I'm a college-educated individual here. I have a hard time wrapping my head around some of the zoning things. I understand that there's been also some discussion about that, the complexity of the zoning. I think that limits citizens' ability to speak into what's going on here. So I think that a simpler, I mean, like, I feel like I got to get my decoder ring to think, okay, what is it? And what color is it? And what is this? And what can be there? So, but this is hopping, as I understand it, 2 steps from suburban, kind of with mixed agricultural use, all the way to multi. So that's 2 changes. And so I'm not for the development either. Let me be clear. I also want to say that I think that that kind of lumping these 2 together, like I appreciate efficiencies in our time and your time, but I think that these should have been very separate issues. I think the zone change should have been one thing where we would consider the character and the purpose and the future of our community, and the development should have been separate. I think that there's a real danger that this gets fast-tracked and rubber stamped without sufficient process and without sufficient community involvement. I don't believe this is consistent with what our community needs. And there's another subjective statement, I believe, that our community needs entry-level housing. Well, I do think that there's a lot of entry-level housing. You can see there's entry-level housing all around here. This super dense area down here on Kyler is a lot of entry-level housing. I'd like to bring an issue with this, this townhouse sort of thing. Gosh, when you look at a house that's 2 houses together, what does the average person call that? They call it a duplex. So if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I say it's a duck. And so when people are saying, I don't want duplexes in my neighborhood, they don't want duplexes in their neighborhood. If it looks like a townhouse, you call it something, they don't want that either. So I don't want that either. I think that a couple of considerations for those, like I mean, I want young families to get a start for sure, but what tends to happen is it tends to be renters. And renters tend not to take care of the land and their property in the same way as an owner would. And so I would appreciate, land adjacent to my family's homes being at a highest density, single homeowner occupancy homes. Let me just check my notes here.
Tristan, I don't mean to cut you off. Legal's letting me know, normally it's a 5-minute limit to chat.
Okay, I will wrap it up here. Thank you. I will put aside my comments of what Remick told me when he sold the land and some of the discrepancies there. Yeah, I hope that you can pump the brakes on this. I hope that you can really look at a lot of this and really look at public comment, and not make 2 zone change adjustments to 2 levels of higher density. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, Gary Carter has indicated he wishes to speak and is against.
My name is Gary Carter. I live at 222 Hubble. I am a member of the Moon Ridge Acres Homeowners Association, as is all of the property owners in that subdivision. I'm also representing the Moon Ridge Acres Maintenance Committee, which is mandated by an HOA that we are required, all homeowners, property owners, I should say, are required to pay into on a yearly basis. And I would have preferred the map that you had that showed this subdivision a little larger, but my first question is it mandatory or is it necessary that the road continue on Hubble Street all the way through?
Yes.
And after listening to what was said here now, I understand that the only access to Ramsey Road is going to be off of Dakota and off of Olympus in our subdivision. Now, the reason why that concerns me is because if my mathematics are correct, there was potentially 37 vehicles, if you will, families that could be living in that subdivision, the new subdivision, which normally you would see 1 or 2 vehicles for each family that's there. And if you only have 2 access points in there, that's got to mean there's going to be a lot of traffic coming up into our neighborhood. and coming out to get onto Ramsey Road. Tonight, when we came down here, it took us 5 minutes to get onto Ramsey because of the traffic as it was. And you're not even going to widen Ramsey for several years yet, but it seems to me that the timing of this subdivision, by the time it all gets built and sold out, that the amount of traffic that's going to be involved there is going to be a lot of wear and tear on Olympus, because that's the shortest route, is up past the fence and off of Olympus and onto Ramsey Road. And you don't have any option other than Dakota or Ramsey Road to get out of our neighborhood. That subdivision was built about 12 years ago, and there's 33 homes in there. They're all single-family homes. And for us to deal with this additional, I have to ask, is it mandatory that Hubble Street go through? For 12 years, we've lived with a fence across there, and the snow plows come in and take the street snow and shove it up against the fence there. And it seems to me that it works pretty well. But if the Ramsey or the Hubble Street goes through, what are you going to do with all that snow? So there, I know you talked about it here, but I didn't see anybody saying anything on what is actually going to happen. Is the city going to have to bring in dump trucks and pick up the snow and physically haul it out of the area? Because there isn't any way that they're going to have room, as I see it, to push the snow up there, which we need in the middle of winter. So if you have a single vehicle for each of those 37, minimum of 37 homes or families that are in there, the amount of traffic that's going to be there, I have to ask, because I didn't see that either on there, are there going to be any garages or driveways for any of those lots? Some of them are pretty damn small. So I'm suspect on how, if they're going to be able to park in their driveway or in their garage, or whether they're going to have to park on the street, and therefore that's going to encumber any snow removal, as it does occasionally when we find somebody that parks on the street in our neighborhood. Also, I heard comments about the sewer being stubbed out somewhere, but it didn't say where. And so I'm curious, can anybody tell me here where this stub?
Across the street.
Across the street where?
Put your finger down just a little bit right there. Back up a little bit, up a little bit. Stop. Too far. Go down. Stop. That's the corner of it.
It's going to come out of here and it's going to stub into Ramsey?
We should let the developer answer that.
Okay, that's a question that I have. I'd like to know that, because it seems to me that the pump station that we have there is going to be, if you're going to have potentially 37 more families in there, that's going to have an impact on that pump station. That used to be my business, was selling pumps and designing pumping systems and whatnot. It's something I understand and I know about. So what are you going to do about that?
Gary, not to cut you, but our timer went off.
Okay. Well, I'll ask one last question then. Is the developer, and I'm assuming that he's the one that has to do this, is he going to require an HOA of the people that are in this, as we have? Because there's a mandated requirement that we have with the maintenance committee to maintain the strip parallel to Ramsey Road next to our property. We have to maintain that. Is that same thing going to be done with this property? I'd like an answer on that.
Thank you, Gary. Lastly, but not least, Kathy, is it Holmes? Adams, sorry.
Hello, I'm Kathy Adams, and from 1780 West Dakota, Hayden. First of all, I don't have any questions. We don't have the infrastructure for this, as you've heard in several different people already saying, where we have problems that need to be fixed. Responsible growth. My family has been stewards of this land for dang near 70 years now. We farm still, all right? And people have stopped by and said how they absolutely love to drive by and see the sheep. I mean, it's like a park in the middle of Hayden. Dalton Gardens had a real idea a long, long time ago that they had a house in an acre. And they have a wonderful community because they took care of responsible growth. What we're doing is we're messing up our Hayden that we've always loved, and we know for that. I'm against the zone change, absolutely. It just, the development is coming, but it needs to be responsible development. It needs to be development. I went through all those housing developments. I drove through them all. I'm kind of mixing up two things between the zone and the subdivision, but there were all single-family homes there. And you can call it a townhouse, you can call it a twin home, but it's nothing but a duplex. No matter how you get down to it. And it does attract renters, all right? So I really, I have a lot of, I've seen a lot of change. And one of these days I'll die and you probably just do what you want. Right now, I'm going to speak against it, please. I'm looking at my notes quick here. This zoning also opens up precedent to apartments. Okay? Which we do not have now. There, in our areas. This is a beautiful area. Let's not mess it up. Traffic. Excuse my language, but Dakota and Ramsey is a cluster. And you just have to come. It starts about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and it gets pretty dense between 7 and 9. And then traffic coming home, same thing. And these folks are right. They shoot down Dakota like it was a racetrack. So that's, and a crosswalk at the northeast corner of Ramsey and Dakota is almost a joke. I mean, it's like taking your life in your hands driving right now, trying to get across the road.
Yes.
So I just, I feel like we need some more infrastructure. We need some more planning on this. I'm just so against the zone change. And the twin houses. I want to keep our community like it is, that people want to come here. Keeps our property values up. It keeps it keeps Hayden being something special. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, the applicant may elect to offer rebuttal.
Again, Jeremy Terzulli with Olson Engineering. Thank you for the opportunity to offer some clarification. Again, all I have is the adopted review criteria. That's all I can go off of. The review criteria, I feel like we check every box completely. I do respect and appreciate some of the comments offered. Very, very difficult to rebut against something that we're not proposing. I think it was brought out about 3, 4, perhaps 5 different times how many units we're proposing on this, and to continually hear that we're trying to jam 37 residences in here is just incorrect. With regard to property values, there are so many factors in play with property values, and we know that. Everybody's going to see their property values go down over these next few months simply based on inflation. So property values, It's a completely fluid situation, and it's driven by factors well beyond what goes in right next door to a particular residence, right? So interest rates are going to do that. At the end of the day, a property value is a direct reflection of somebody's willingness to purchase something. That's where the value comes from. And if they can't qualify for a loan, you'll see sellers spend more time on market because their pool of buyers has shrunk. And so property value, it's a moving target. And to think that this development is going to diminish property values, I think it's misguided. Everybody's had their opportunity. Perhaps you could allow me my opportunity. Thank you. The product that we're going to put forth here is going to fit the neighborhood context. We have height restrictions. We will follow those. We're not trying to over-densify this area. We're working with the constraints that we have within the design criteria. We're working very closely with the city staff. Infrastructure is available. We have to reach out to the districts and ask them, do they have the ability to serve this? Talk to the community development director. We've talked to the public works director, the city engineer. We have come up with a plan. The infrastructure is available. It will allow the city additional funds with which to continue to support the need for that infrastructure. And then with regard to the minimum lot sizes, there's one point that I think Donna left out, which also drives the design in something like the mixed residential zoning designation. So we've got our density of 8 units per acre. We've got to put in the public infrastructure, the road, the sidewalks, the street side swales. Then we also have setbacks. And so I just drew a little example here, and if I had more time, I could draw it for you guys. If you were going to propose a 30-foot by 50-foot wide structure, and then we add in the 7.5-foot side yard setbacks on either side, the 25-foot front yard setback, and the 15-foot rear yard setback, you're on a lot that's 90 by 45, which equates to 4,050 minimum lot size, if my math is right there. So now we've got a 4,000-foot lot to fit a 50-foot by 30-foot wide structure. So honestly, and then stack all that up with density restrictions, the need to put in the streets and the sidewalks and the swales. There's a lot of things driving ultimately what can be built in this zoning designation. And again, our net density is less than 4 units per acre. Let's see, parking was brought up. Idaho or Hayden Code requires 2 parking stalls per dwelling unit off-street. Can't count a garage if it's a single car garage. If it's a 2-car garage, you can count 1 stall. And then you can count the driveway. Add that with an HOA that will be drafted, and this development will be very similar to the development to the north of it. Very similar in density, very similar in architectural style, very similar. Ironically, our street section is going to be wider than the one to the north. Because I've been in on the design of this from day one, so I'm aware of what's going on there. And then, yeah, with regard to the running the 2 processes concurrent, I couldn't disagree with that assessment more. This is about transparency. This isn't about trying to fast track something. If we just came in here with a zone change request, everybody would be jumping up and down. They're going to jam 51 units in here. So this was about transparency. This was about showing the product that we're putting forth here, not trying to fast track anything. You've got a developer, born and raised in this county, family still farms in this county. Very similar to stories that I heard from people around here, who's trying to bring a diverse product as a for-profit venture. But he's not trying to skin a fat hog on this one. He's trying to bring different housing types to an area that the city has identified as an infill opportunity. And again, all we have is the adopted criteria to bring forth to this commission and ultimately to the city council. So we respectfully request that you support this and offer a recommendation to city council for approval. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions of the applicant? All right, so the hearing is now closed. No more questions or comments will be allowed from the public. To the commission, do we wish to proceed or schedule deliberations for another date?
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Hearing proceed. All right, so we have two requests, and we're going to do those separately.
Zone map amendment first.
Yes. So the first thing we need to talk about, and Donna, will you throw up the 4 standards of approval for zone map amendment, please? So first we'll hit PZE-22-0128. Thank you, Donna. All right, Keith, you want to start?
Not really.
All right, Mary?
Donna, could you bring up the future land use map for me, please?
I can't see it that small.
Oh.
And I'm not sure that mine is the same as that one.
So that I just want to check.
This is different from that.
Yeah, it's
These are different than,
it's the other side,
Flip it over.
that one.
oh, there we are. Because I'm like, that doesn't look the same. And
This still looks really small. Okay. Oh, thank you for putting that side by side like that. Okay. So the orange on that side is commercial. And that side is the,
This is light industrial.
right?
This is the existing zone map. So this is light industrial.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of slashed area is residential suburban.
Mm-hmm.
The yellow is residential single family.
Mm-hmm.
This has a zoning development agreement on it.
Okay.
Matter of interest.
And the future land use map has mixed residential across the street, the other side of Dakota, from here down. The purple.
Mixed use.
Mixed use.
Oh, that's mixed use.
What is the one right above there for the,
Sir, public comments are over.
I just want to, is the zone, I can't see the color on
On this side or this side?
that. Okay. It was there right next to the old development on the.
Where the trees are. right there.
That bit, right there. What is that color? What is that
It's
mean?
blue and it's mixed residential.
Well, I'm going from residential suburban to.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just for clarification, nobody's proposing that your property change at all.
Future land use map.
Right. If you decided to make that happen, nobody's making that happen for you. I just wanted to be clear.
Oh, I just want to make, okay. As long as you leave me alone. Okay.
Mary,
Donna,
can you
can I ask a question?
Sure.
Donna, can you just clarify in as layman's terms as possible how the future land use map actually works?
So the future land use map is a map that at the 5,000 foot level, 3,000 foot level, looks at the city as a whole and addresses, based on input during the Imagine Hayden process, addresses where certain zone designations may or may not have made sense. So As an example, in our conversation with the airport, we worked really closely with the airport when we were working on the future land use map, and they identified areas in their runway protection zones that they didn't want to have high-density residential that had previously been allowed in other zones. And so we recognized that. And so in those runway protection zones, there's only light industrial or commercial, the low-density residential options. Along our corridors, we proposed, as you can see on all your maps, as you got up there, you can see corridors in the future land use map that were previously commercial, which would have allowed for multifamily uses. We put mixed use in there as a transition between a previous use and a now use. And so this property, then we looked kind of as we migrated through various uses, we realized that there, and everybody does with planning, that there are certain uses that when they're side by side, they're not really very, they don't play nice, for lack of a better way to put it. And so it's recognized that light industrial to commercial, those are really good buffers from one to the other. If you have a street that breaks it up, it's helpful, but you really want to, if you have mixed use along the Hayden corridor and potentially up into, again, 5,000 foot level, up into Dakota, you really don't want to have that possibility of all commercial use butted right up against single family residential. So we buffered those areas with mixed residential. Mixed residential on the future land use map is a small portion of the whole zones that are available. And we anticipated that mixed residential, as we've heard here tonight, would be more of a zone designation that would buffer between two zones, as well as be utilized for infill development. So there is a buffering component to it that's occurring.
So I guess the other clarification I'd like to know is, what's the process for anything that's colored differently in the future land use map than what it is today? What's the process for those things to actually change and become that new color?
This process that we're here doing tonight.
Right.
Every single landowners would bring forward their requested change, and they would be heard before the Planning and Zoning Commission at a public hearing, and then heard again in front of City Council at a public hearing.
So if like the orange section there, across the street where the storage unit is, that's a light commercial. But isn't that commercial already today?
It's not. It's light industrial today.
Or light industrial, sorry.
Self-storage.
Yes.
The only location that self-storage isn't allowed use in it today is light industry.
Gotcha.
This is deliberations by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And for clarification for the public, when we try to restrict the comments to the public comment time, that's because this is a quasi judicial hearing, which means your Planning and Zoning Commission is sitting as a judge tonight. Their obligation is to hear the evidence that you've presented, that's in their packet, that the applicant has presented, and then to make an informed decision. And so we have to keep a really clean record on this, meaning that everybody who's speaking needs to be identified so that if at the end of the day, anybody decides to appeal this, we can create a transcript that accurately identifies every person and their comment. And the process in the Idaho code is really specific for this. So we're not trying to be mean or cut you off or shut you down. It's just there's a very specific process, and the public comment period time that you were given is that's what it's for, is for those comments. And this piece needs to be really clean in case we need to create a transcribable record at any point in the future.
Thank you, Fauna. Ben or Brandon, do you guys have any comments or questions?
Because they checked every box.
Any thoughts on whether the zone map amendment meets the 4 standards of approval or not? Since that's what we're ultimately first deciding.
I'd like to see the standards back up.
You okay if I move this?
Yeah. Thank you, Donna.
All right. There we go.
I understand the complexity of this one with the overwhelming negative feeling towards this happening from the crowd. And I think that has a lot to do with all of us being really quiet right now. And looking at the future land use map, yes, this property does fall in the mixed residential, which is not mixed use, which does not allow apartments. So that was an incorrect statement from whoever said that earlier. This is complicated. So I'm just putting that out there right now. And we do understand how everybody cares about the small town feel of Hayden. I'm born and raised here myself, so I totally understand what it is that you guys are saying. But no, I'm still thinking about this.
I agree with what Brandon said. I mean, I do have, I see moderate pathways to objection in standard number 2. Even though we've gotten approval from, the fire department or anything like that, like when it comes to public health, safety, and certainly the general welfare, I too am growing increasingly frustrated about what traffic has become, and yeah, so that's my hang up right now. I'll let everyone else kind of speak their piece before I keep going, but
Okay, I'll go.
thanks, Keith.
So, I guess I feel like all of us are citizens. We all live here. And the reason why we volunteer our time to do this, not paid, is because we love the community and we want what's best for the community. And I think for me, when I first started on the Planning and Zoning Commission, I just wanted to see Hayden stay Hayden. I just wanted to, say, don't change anything, leave it alone. Unfortunately, if I had got my wish, I would have been trampling on the rights of a lot of property owners that bought their property, and they come to the government expecting the government to protect their rights to develop, to sell, to keep, to whatever. And so you can't make everybody happy, and I wish that you could, but the bottom line is to tell somebody that they can't build on their property, that would be criminal. They bought their property, they can do what they want with it as long as it's within the laws. And nobody here would like to be told, no, you can't do that. If they wanted to sell their property, nope, sorry, you can't sell it. You can't add a shed. You can't. Nobody likes that. But having said that, that doesn't mean that we have to change the zone map. We don't have to do that. I mean, I understand we to a certain degree have our hands tied. Correct me if I'm wrong. The state has requirements for us as a city to do certain things. We can't just do whatever we want. Is that not right?
Well, you have to hear the evidence tonight and then factually apply.
I just mean in our role in any, not just tonight, but at any point in time.
Then I misunderstood
the state has certain guidelines that we have to follow.
You have the Local Land Use Planning Act that you are obligated to.
That's right. And it's meant to protect each individual landowner and their rights.
It was designed and is still intended to make sure that appointed officials and elected officials balance very carefully the private property rights with the need for orderly development within the municipal boundaries.
Right. So, yeah, no, that's exactly.
And that's why it's hard.
So I feel, I mean, I'm frustrated with traffic. I'm frustrated with growth. I'm frustrated with all the same things, but I can't go and tell somebody, you know, that property you spent your life savings on, sorry, you can't develop that because I don't like it. I can't do that. That's not right. I wouldn't want to be told that. So I understand that we have, you know, certain criteria where we can say, this is what you can do with the property. Yes, you can do this. No, you can't do that. And so I think that everything that the developer is proposing would meet that criteria were the zone already changed. But because it's not, I'm not inclined to change the zone. I don't want to see the zone change.
So in saying that, because you believe it doesn't meet one of the 4 standards of approval.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying that we're wanting to change the zone so we can approve this, so it fits the standards of approval. If we don't change the zone, then it doesn't fit the standards of approval.
No, these are the standards of approval just for the rezone.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, okay.
correct my language, and you know what I'm trying to say.
No, I'm not sure.
So
What I'm trying to say is however you vote, it just has to be based on our standards of approval.
I get it. I can't hazard the city and get the city sued, and I agree. I don't want the city sued. We've lost part of our infrastructure, hasn't been developed because of lawsuits that have wasted our money. And so I don't want any more of that. But what I am saying is, as I understand it, there's certain things you can do with your property with the zoning that you have, and there's certain things you can't do. Mm-hmm. And so if we leave the zoning alone and we don't change the zoning, we leave it as is,
Right.
then this project doesn't fit.
Well,
that
then,
zoning.
yeah, then PZE 220129 would become a moot point unless
Right.
it meets residential suburban, which I don't think you can stick a development on residential suburban. So, so yes, one, if we don't approve the first, the second becomes moot.
Perfect.
So having said that, as PZE 220128 applies to the standards for us to evaluate and the testimony, you're saying you don't want to rezone?
I'm saying that I'm prepared to make a recommendation for or against the zone change. I would recommend against it.
Okay.
But I need to talk stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So it is always difficult. It's always difficult. But I totally agree with what you said as far as the balance. And so bottom line is you cannot legislate growth. Growth can't be legislated. Growth has to be planned for. So what we did is we created a plan so that when the market drove growth, we would at least have a planned community that down the road, when the growth was there, was a nice community. It's never going to be what it was 20 years ago. And 20 years from today, it's not going to be what it is today. It isn't going to be. So we've put out a plan, and then when someone who has property says they want to do X, and it goes according to the plan that we said, that we gave them the rules, and they followed the rules. And now they're coming to us and saying, okay, we followed the rules according to your plan. We'd like to develop this. We'd like to do this. We're asking you to rezone this.
Then that's not following the,
But no, it is, because it's following what the rules we gave them, and that is the future land use map. Because we're saying in 20 years, as we grow, we want to grow into a nice community.
we're already a nice community.
We're not going to be the same community we are today in 20 years.
I don't disagree.
Just like we are not the same community we were 20 years ago.
I don't disagree.
Today. So we've set out a plan. A lot of effort and a lot of public comment was put in to create that plan. We're all now looking at it and going, oh, there needs to be some tweaks here and there.
Yeah, there does.
Okay, but we can't throw it out. And right now, this is where it's at. And a developer, a person who owns property has come to us and said, I followed your rules and I'm asking for this because it fits in what you say your plan is. So I don't see a way that we say no, because I feel like they followed the rules that we gave them. And right now, we have to live with those rules. If we decide we don't like those rules, then we can change those rules, but they're not changed tonight. Okay. So they followed the rules. Okay. They have the right to use the rules that we gave them to ask us to let them do what they want to do with their property.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Any more comments from down here? Because putting more thought into it?
Go for it, Beth.
That was a very good point, Mary. I mean, there's a box, color inside the box, and then you decide you should have colored in a triangle when they bring it. The box is nicely colored in.
But isn't it?
But I agree, but before we, I mean, because we're doing two things tonight, we are looking to, Mary says we can't change the rules middle of the game, and I agree with that, you know, wholeheartedly. But I think what we're talking about tonight is that the rules haven't been set in stone, because that's why we're addressing this now before we jump to the approval of the development. At the same time, though, I have no doubt that the developer looked at the future land use map and has invested gross sums financially, I'm sure, and a lot of sleepless nights, because I know what things cost and what investment costs as a business owner. And that's where I agree with Mary, that this person clearly has probably based a lot of this on the future land use map, and now we're saying, maybe I don't want to, you know, now. So I'm not on one side of the fence or the other on this right now. So, but I do think as far as standards of approval, that number two, there are some things that need to happen in this town, infrastructure wise, before I can green light public health, safety, and general welfare with the current arrangement of the traffic infrastructure in this town, in particular, this particular intersection.
Here's the problem with the infrastructure. You're talking about chicken or the egg, which comes first? Well, unfortunately, rooftops have to come before a lot of infrastructure. Otherwise, why would you spend your money there to change that infrastructure?
But I've seen, I get it. You look at Carrington Meadows, it's a fine subdivision. I've probably yielded business out of there as a business owner, people working on their broken cars. I get it. And they've widened the road and they've put things in, but they widened the road in front of Carrington. It just seems like this town, and Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls don't seem to be any better. Maybe Post Falls a little bit. I don't know. I don't care to know about them, but there seems to be
and this is before I was even on the commission, and this is way outside our bounds, but that when we get money in for development, it happens in front of that development, when sometimes that is not the best allocation of dollars. I don't think. I mean, I think when that money goes into that pool, what's the term I'm looking for here?
Impact fees.
Thank you. The impact fees ought to be spent where the best use is determined by the city.
For clarification of the record, just impact fees are spent on the capital improvement project priority list, not just on that development.
Okay. Well, then I stand corrected, but we have plenty of sidewalks going to nowhere in this city, some of which are right in front of my personal property on Atlas Road. So, but anyway, I'm just where I stand on this one, because I think there's challenges to the standards number 2 in particular.
So if you guys don't mind, I'll inject some thoughts here. So one, the 5 of us do not have to agree. And I know we all respect that, you know, tonight could be a 3-2, a 4-1, an odd 5, a 5 odd. It really depends on what is proposed. And so certainly when we're comfortable with deliberation, somebody can make a proposal. I will point out, although it's not part of our standards of approval, I just went ahead and looked at the table of allowed uses. Let's just say going forward, tonight we say, no, we're not going to allow this zone change to happen. So now as a property owner, I'm asking, well, what can I do with this? And so just not putting in bugs in anybody's ear, but these are some allowable uses, either conditionally or just flat out allowed under residential suburban, which it is today. We could have boarding homes, bed and breakfasts, convalescent homes, nursing homes, community residential or treatment facilities, foster homes, group child care homes of 7 to 12 children, group care centers, after-school child care, wellness communication facilities, cemeteries, clubs, lodges, social halls, public buildings, recreational centers, religious institutions, schools, library and culture facilities, golf courses, parks, utility infrastructures, animal raising, greenhouse nursery, residential kennels. I'm only pointing this out because obviously if this request is denied, the property owner's going to do something with it.
It's their right.
I mean, obviously they could also just sell it and leave it as it is. I'm just saying there are a lot of uses for the land. For me personally, I feel the applicant meets the standards of approval for the zone map amendment. Having said that, again, if you all have issues with number 2, I respect that and understand your perspectives. So that's my 2 cents.
I will state that based off what we generally hear, and this is moderately snarky, but the consensus is that based off what you read in partial, that most of the people would only be happy if I wrote down if it was a park or a cemetery, because
that was my point.
Right. I'm not tone deaf to people just don't simply want anything to happen. And that's their opinion, but that's not, as Mary said, that's not what Hayden's going to be in 20 years. Something's going to go there. I mean, that's, and just so everybody knows, what he read off wouldn't even have to come to us.
Yeah, a lot of those are allowed. Some are conditional, so they'd have to come to us for a conditional use.
Yeah.
Or special use. I'm sorry for, I know it's switched from one to the other. But the point is, yeah, in the future, there could be all kinds of things there that, I mean, I'm looking at, if I was a homeowner, I would much prefer some homes next to me rather than those uses, with the exception of, like I said, maybe a cemetery or a park, right?
Can I ask a question to Donna?
Sure.
Hey, Donna, if the zoning didn't change tonight, how many residences could be on that? With 12?
Plus or minus, yeah. Something like 66.4.
Residential suburban?
Half-acre lots,
Half-acre lots, okay.
assuming you get the roads to work in.
Right.
That would be good.
But
What it's zoned for right now.
I agree. I see that. And there'd be a lot of people that would be just fine with that, but they don't own the property. And
The owner can do whatever they want within the laws that are set up right now. What they're asking for is they're asking for us to change the laws so that they can put more on.
Not change the law,
Period.
change the.
Well, you know what I mean, whatever the.
And you're just a recommending body.
That's
Let's be
right.
clear.
I know.
I know that.
We're not the
We're gonna
guy that makes the decision. All we do is we say, we've listened to everything. We've tried to protect the city from being sued. We've tried to protect the landowner so that their rights aren't trampled on. And we've tried to protect the community as a whole so that something that, whatever happens with that property is something that's good, that's responsible. And it can't just stay the same. That's not fair to, I think, yeah.
I don't want it to be misunderstood. It isn't that I want to see personally higher density rather than the residential suburban. It's that I'm trying to take me and my personal opinion out of the equation.
Absolutely.
And go with what are the rules we collectively have set out and now are responsible for, and what rules we told that landowner they had to live within.
Alan, can I request a real short intermission
Okay.
in the middle of deliberation?
Yes, you can. So let's
Thank you.
meet it back up at what, 8 after? Is that enough time?
Oh, I'd be probably 1 minute.
All right, let's reconvene at 8 after. We'll just stretch our legs.
So all I'm trying to say is,
Okay, we are resuming deliberations. I'll ask the community to
So it's a minimum.
please keep the comments inside until we're done. Commissioners, I assume we're going to resume deliberations to the point that we agree that, well, we don't have to agree, to where somebody wants to make a proposal or not. Keep in mind, of course, what we're doing tonight is simply recommending to city council. We're not making a final decision tonight. So as we deliberate, obviously there's a kind of a point where I think we're maybe burning a little extra energy. If it's, you know, in other words, we'll do the best we can do it, but you know, keeping in mind city council can hear the facts, see them differently, or agree with us and make the final decision. So does anyone want to keep deliberating? Does someone want to make a motion? I don't want to rush this, but I also want to continue the ball rolling.
What's the,
I don't want to cut anybody off, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's very respectful.
so, I just want to restate, I feel like the current zone is if they wanted to color within the box or the triangle or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
It's make your plan by what the current zone is. And then you don't even have to come and talk to us. You just get your building permit, you do what you want, and away you go. But by virtue of somebody coming here and asking us for special permission to deviate from the current zone and change that zone to something that it's not, even though it coincides with this map, there's a lot of things on this map that aren't going to be good for Hayden.
Right.
And that we have a responsibility to, on a case-by-case basis, to say, oh yeah, in this instance, that's probably not a good idea. I know the color is this and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But the bottom line is that's what we're for. We're to say, this is a good idea for Hayden and this is a bad idea for Hayden. This isn't the Bible. This is just the proposed that we have a plan going forward in the future, but we don't have to follow it to our own detriment. We can make a course adjustment and say, yeah, in this instance, I think, you know what I mean? So I'm just saying, the property owner, they can do what they want. They don't even have to ask us. And there's plenty of things that could be done with that. You read it. And some of them could be worse to these people's detriment than what they're proposing right now. So you could get something worse, just so you know. But the property, I think their owner has been, their rights have been protected. I think the city has been protected, and I think that those directly impacted by it, we've considered that, and so what's the number?
PZE 220128.
Yeah, in the matter of PZ, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. And you know, we've got a guide inside the book. You got your book tonight?
No book over
No
here.
book. What's the PZ, what?
It's right here.
It's not.
-22-0128.
It's that one right there.
In the matter of PZE 220128, I motion to deny the request for a zone map amendment.
Recommend.
Say it again.
We recommend the city council denies the request.
Recommend that the city council denies the request. I'm just reading it off of the, as it does not meet the standards of approval as discussed in deliberations, or more specifically as follows, meaning it's asking for a change in zoning.
Which one of those standards of approval?
Those standards of approval.
Whichever one is asking to deviate from the current zoning.
It's got to be one of those four. So you have to look at the words in there and just pick on some. that you don't think fits inside the request?
It doesn't meet the public health, safety, and general welfare. Number 2.
Okay, so there is a motion before us. Does anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, so there's a second. So now comes a vote. So if you vote yes, that means you agree with the motion. If you vote no, it means you don't agree with the motion. May we have a roll call, please?
Alan Davis,
No.
Mary Howard,
No.
Keith Gibson,
Yes.
Ben Prickett,
Yes.
and Brandon Bemis.
No.
Has, you have 3 noes and 2 yeses, so it fails.
Okay, so at this point, we can put another, we can deliberate more, or another motion can be proposed. And there's nothing to stop someone from proposing another motion to deny the request, perhaps with a different parameter or with the well, there's no conditional no's, so yeah. Does anybody else want to make a motion?
I'm just going to throw out an idea back to something that Keith brought up before that I think is really important.
Okay.
So we are here to look at the boxes and back to the triangle versus the boxes. These people have gone through and done, who knows, ad nauseum, going over the standards of approval. And it is our job to protect the rights of the property owner.
And consider the community
And
consistent with the big,
General welfare?
no, the big document. Thank you, the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Wow. Good thing I didn't make mayor or something.
And the comprehensive plan, with regards to what Mary brought up multiple times, is something that we all have worked on a lot, along with the city council.
Yep.
And this falls right in line with what it is that we've been talking about for years. I think it's important we think about that.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion? And not to confuse things, Fonda, please correct me if I'm wrong. Someone could always make a motion to continue deliberations into the next meeting.
Table.
And I'm not suggesting that, I'm just simply giving us our options.
I don't mind deliberating some more, or, I mean, this is important. I don't think this should just be taken lightly, so I think we're good to deliberate more.
Like anybody's.
There's not one person.
No, I'm just saying.
At all.
I'm just saying, I think it warrants more deliberation.
Okay.
So let's talk a minute about what the community needs. Okay. Let's take,
Not more traffic.
let's take traffic off the table.
No, that's.
No, no, okay. Okay, let me make my statement here, okay? I've sat here and listened to a lot of different opinions and taken every comment seriously.
Sure.
What I struggle with is if a developer comes and wants to build apartments, everybody's in an uproar, surely that's going to be a drug den. Then we want to build
Twin homes.
mixed residential. And by golly, they're all going to become rentals. Okay, what they become, what that person who buys that property, that individual home, we have no business.
Correct.
considering that.
Amen. Totally agree. Let them build
No
12 houses.
business, okay? But everybody also screams about how expensive the homes have gotten. Not everybody can afford.
That's not our place either.
I understand that.
No, but that's talking about community needs.
That's about community needs. Is that we do need places for people to live where they can, otherwise, the people who work at the grocery store, where the heck are they supposed to live? That is a community need. That is something that we do consider. And so I'm like, and what about, we don't want to talk about our healthcare crisis, that our medical assistants can't afford to live here. They can't. I understand what the community needs, but we don't build roads. I mean, we aren't building Hutter right at the moment because there's not rooftops enough to warrant it. There's not the people to warrant it yet.
Even though we all need it. If the Hutter bypass lane were available today, there would be 30,000 people driving it every day. 30,000 cars. That was the stats. But we're still not building it. So the needs are there, definitely. To jump on what you're saying, sorry to interrupt.
No, yeah, but there has to be the revenue. There has to be the impact fees. There has to be the infrastructure. That has to come. It's the chicken and the egg discussion. But that isn't ours because we don't control when the roads are built and what revenues there are for that. We have to balance property rights, needs of community, and a plan so that we don't look like Spokane where we have mishmash everywhere.
But that's...
We have put together a plan and we've now said, okay, property owner, these are the things that we have set for our future plan. We then don't get to dictate when they exercise that right to build according to the plan that we gave them. Sir, I hope that your descendants, that your posterity keep your land exactly what they are for as long as they want to keep it that way. But it's not mine to tell them when and what they should do with their property. So get together, buy that parcel, make it a park. But you didn't. Somebody else did, and they want to do something different with it, according to the rules that we set out. They've done what we asked them to do, according to the plan. We don't get to dictate when he exercises his right to do that.
Anything on Sim? Keith?
Yeah. So they haven't made their plan within the box of what today's box is. They've made their plan within what the future land use map, which is fluid and changes, and we get to have a say.
Except that is, Keith, if you look at number 3.
It's a good idea or a bad idea.
We're supposed to be in accordance with the future land use map, not what it is today.
Okay, but isn't the purpose of our body to make course corrections when the future land use map is going to put in a huge thing that is terrible so that we can say, nah,
Okay.
sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I know there's one on here that you want to change.
But we have to change that before a property owner comes and says, I would like to build according to number 3 and check all of those as well. We have to change that before they come to us. We can't change it midstream for them.
Okay,
It's
but I'm just
midstream for
saying,
them.
if he had come to the city and said, what do I have to do to build on this property? Donna would have said X, Y, and Z, and they wouldn't even have to come and talk to us. And They could have put 12 houses on there. They could have put 12 houses on there, half-acre lots, and they wouldn't have had to ask for any special permission. That would have been great for the community. That would have been great for these guys here. That would have been great for everybody. The homeowner, the property owner would have made some money on the investment. His rights wouldn't have been trampled. 12 houses would have gone in. We would have got the impact fees for it. It would have helped for building the roundabouts we want. Everybody would have been happy. But they're asking for special permission to come and deviate from what exists right now today. And they're saying, you put out this map.
To the future.
I don't care. This isn't gospel.
Sure, but here's the devil's advocate to your argument. And
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out. I'm not,
Yes.
not saying that this is how it has to be. I'm just giving you something else to think about. When we talk about number 2 and we look at the uses of the area being consistent with community needs, let's say we build 12 houses on there.
Okay.
They're probably going to be bigger. They're probably more expensive. Does Hayden need more expensive houses, or does Hayden need to be developed with many levels of housing so that?
Hey, but that's
the
not
nurses-
our purview, is it?
It's right there, number 2, it is.
But that's what's,
That's what we're supposed to consider. Now, you could say, I don't agree, that this is where we're gonna stick some twin homes and some single homes. You can say that because I don't think it's safe, I don't think it's good for our general welfare. You can say that, you're sticking by the stance of approval. But the idea
So
that,
at that intersection, some good friends of mine were in an accident recently and nearly killed. And so I do know really well that intersection.
yep,
And I'm just saying, our community, take this and let this aside. Our community has a real problem with traffic. And what's best for our community is to have less traffic, not more traffic. And so what I'm saying is, for safety, it is better to have 12 houses than 12 houses and 13
more houses.
not duplexes, whatever they are.
And that could be your perspective.
I agreed, and that is my perspective. I'm saying for that purpose, let's limit it to what the guidelines are today and let the homeowner come in and do whatever they want with it that is currently allowed today without asking for our special recommendation to ask the city council to put in more stuff. When we don't need more stuff, we need less stuff. So I disagree. I
think you will communicate
Okay.
your perspective. And so is Mary. You guys have anything new to add, or does anybody want to make a motion?
Come on, Mary. Let's go.
what's the number?
Yeah, 22.
Give me the number.
220128.
In the matter of PZE 220128, I propose that we approve.
Recommend approval.
I
City
recommend
Council.
approval. As for, I'm not understanding these words here.
Yeah, that's what happened to me too.
Sorry. I recommend we approve it. I believe that it follows all of the conditions of approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Does anybody want to second that motion?
I second that.
Okay, motion's been seconded. May we have a roll call, please?
Helen Davis,
Yes.
Mary Howard,
Yes.
Keith Gibson,
No.
Ben Prickett,
Nope.
Brandon Bemis.
Yes.
We have 3 yeses and 2 nos, so the motion has passed.
Okay. So moving on to PZE-22-0129. This is for the
The development.
development, that has a different set of standards of approval. Can we get those up, please?
It's like 4 slides.
Yeah,
Eight
there's
standards of
8 of them, yeah.
Yep.
Or if we want to look on our laptops, I don't know what page it's on. We can look that up real
I
quick.
gotta sign back in.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time finding it too.
Do you know what
I miss
page
my binders.
they're on?
I'm not gonna lie. I know I'm not that old, but some things are just better in paper.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you very much.
This is this one. Oh, here, that's why.
All right, so a subdivision's being proposed to go in. And we just have to look to see, does the subdivision meet these 8 standards? Again, if it does not, we can, you throw up the slide with the yes, no, and the conditional yes, please.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for being super flexible tonight, Donna.
So Ellen, one of the things that was brought up multiple times was the number of 37. And I think it's important that we clarify it's 25 total.
Yes,
Single
25
family.
total single-family homes, although some of them share a common wall.
Yeah. So of the 12
Twin homes.
townhome,
They're
twin
twin
homes, that's really 6 buildings, not 12 that are split in half.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess there'd be a total of what, 18 buildings going up? Of which 12 have a common wall.
And the twin homes are sold as a single family.
And twin homes are sold as a single-family residence, which means,
And they both have 2-car garages.
They both meet the whole design standard.
so looking at the 8, let us deliberate. Please, somebody start.
Can you bring up the map of the subdivision for me, please? Okay, so things I noticed about the design, and is this preliminary or is this pretty close to what it's gonna be?
Close.
Okay. So what I see is that lot 12 butts up against where the substation is right now, right?
And 2 other lots, correct?
And 2 other lots.
And that's a single family home going in there?
It is.
Yeah, all the twin homes are on the south side and on the south part of the loop.
Okay. But otherwise, you have a big section of roadway that has its swell and all that stuff that abuts fences, but not homes.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm not going to apologize that I have a completely different perspective of the twin homes. My grandmother lived in a twin home that was absolutely beautiful. And this whole subdivision was beautiful. I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive that adds value to our community in that it offers home ownership to people that wouldn't otherwise be able to. They wouldn't be able to buy in my subdivision. They
Not
would
mine
have.
either.
Right. I couldn't buy in my subdivision.
It looks like one of the things that I'm noticing is there was a concern that one of the public had about
Snow push.
that's ridiculous. So it's obvious that that was built in a certain way for something to come in there in the future. I am watching that with my HOA, and we all hate it, but that's what's going to happen.
You getting twin homes?
I don't know what's going in there yet.
It's not exchanged.
But so for what it's worth, there was a really good place for you guys to push snow at some point. Now that fence won't be there and the snow is just going to be continuously pushed out into other areas. So instead of having a huge pile that was built up at one point, it's just going to be a road that you can just drive through. So I don't think that that's a concern either. I see the twin home idea as part of the missing middle that we've been talking about for a long time. Back to city needs. Yeah, putting 12 homes in there on half-acre lots, they would have been selling for well over $1 million, every single one of them. And I sure as hell wouldn't be able to pay for one of those. And my wife and I both work full-time jobs, which most people in Coeur d'Alene don't. There's a lot of people that have single family earners and they have a stay at home with kids. And I don't think that the majority of people can afford to live in a home that costs over $1 million in our area. So I think this is going to fulfill a lot of city needs. And I don't have anything exactly on the standards of approval yet, but that's just my opinion right now.
Ben?
Y'all know how I voted, what I proposed, but no, but here's where things, in my opinion, here's where things change. I do think, my thought and my vote didn't win out tonight, and that happens. It's happened before, it probably happened again, but now I think, given what we know now and the way things have transpired, I do believe it meets the standards of approval. So I know that may sound like I'm flipping. I'm not. I'm just working within the confines that have been redrawn now in the meeting because I'm trying to be objective and a realist. So that's my thoughts on it.
Okay, very good. Anything down there, Mary Keith?
Yeah, I'll go.
Yes, sir.
So that is part of the standards of approval. And we should be working as hard as we can to limit the number of houses or dwellings in an area, not trying to figure out ways that we can increase the number of dwellings in an area. So I don't feel it meets the standards of approval for safety. That's it.
So you don't think it supports standard approval 1 and maybe 3E?
The piece of paper I'm looking at here says, number 1 here says infrastructure can be constructed to function in a manner that promotes public health, safety, and welfare. No, it doesn't. Okay. To me, it does not.
Okay. Mary, anything to add?
So the other thing is, I know, I like a big lot. That's my personal feeling. But I understand that not everyone does. And a lot of people want lower maintenance in their home, and that means smaller yards. And because of this zoning, they're able to make these lots smaller and produce a product that I think is needed in our area. I love that it's not more dense. I feel like they've been responsible in making it less dense, on the less dense side of this zoning. And so I think it is what our community needs.
Okay. My thoughts are, I think it meets the standards of approval while not necessary, or not directed towards the standards of approval. I also echo your comments. The developer could have put a lot more stuff in here within the zone allowed.
And within his right.
Yep. And again, that's a standards of approval aside. So that's my thoughts. We could deliberate more if somebody wants to make a not a proposal, a
Motion.
recommendation. Thank you very much. Obviously getting late.
It's froze.
And remember, we're recommending to city council, we're not deciding.
You just say recommendation.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
Donna, typically when we're looking at stuff like this, we tend to grab like other little subdivisions in the area and they show the percentages of like density from the one that's right here to the north and then the one that's over here to the east. And I've just kind of gotten used to that idea. Do we have any idea what it is directly to the north?
You can reach your hands out and touch both sides of the walls, and it's $1 million.
But that's not.
I'm just saying, that's not our place to decide price tags.
You're right.
That's not.
You're right.
And go to Breckenridge. That's more of a Hayden type place. It was. And you can't afford to live there either in a tiny place. And so if people want to work at whatever place they want to work at, there will be a commute. And some people commute over 60 minutes a day, one direction, because they can't afford to live in the place where they go for the wages.
But you want less traffic.
I'm just saying that
equals traffic.
That equals more traffic.
that's fine.
That the city's done a piss poor job on developing Ramsey and Dakota.
Not his job.
It's not his, that's not his.
I didn't say it was his job.
No, I'm just saying, but I mean, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
I'm just saying that we can allow the landowner to develop their property in a manner that is protecting his rights.
But that vote's, we lost, Keith. That was 3-2. That's my point. I mean, I've changed gears now.
I get it.
I mean, that's why I'm not.
Well, make a motion and have it be a 4-1. But I still think that safety is,
What's the number? Give me the number.
220129.
22019. I'm not good at. Okay.
129. Do you need the cheat sheet?
I do need the cheat sheet.
don't follow it. It's not right. It's setting you up for failure. Say recommended, don't say motion.
We could discuss after. It reads good to me. Just make sure we say recommend approval. Because again, city council's going to hear this again. There's going to be another case where the community, if they don't like our decision tonight, could go to city council and say, hey, planning and zoning sure sucks. We want to be heard again.
This is definitely a thankless job.
Totally. I love y'all, but this is.
Yes.
When I leave this place after nights like this, like, what am I doing to myself? In the matter of PZE -22-0129, I motion to approve the request. Recommend the.
Told you don't use that thing.
Recommend the motion.
I make a motion to recommend that city council approve.
That's not what it says.
It does not say that.
Yeah, we should fix that.
Make a motion, one more time, Fonda.
Make a motion to recommend.
Make a motion to recommend
City council.
to city council to approve under the staff's proposed conditions.
Of which there were, I think, 8 for this one.
Find that it meets all of the standards of approval.
Yes, it meets all 8 standards of approval.
Have all staff's recommended conditions included.
All the staff's recommended conditions included.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Thanks.
We have a second. Would you take roll, please?
Alan Davis,
Yes.
Mary Howard,
Yes.
Keith Gibson,
No.
Ben Prickett,
Yes.
Brandon Bemis.
Yes.
We have 4 yeses and 1 no, so the motion passes.
Okay, the motion passes. All right, next thing we have is unfinished business and action item. Participation in the, what the heck happened to my computer here? Hayden Lights Parade and Tree Lighting on December 3rd.
So we're going to AI first,
No, this is
5AI?
4, and I'm not sure.
Oh, got it.
I didn't read this part, so Donna, why are we discussing the Hayden Lights Parade and Tree Lighting?
It dawned on me when I was at that Hayden Historic Preservation Commission meeting that our Hayden Historic Commissioners always participate in all of the parades. But the city has, and I didn't know if the Planning and Zoning Commission had ever even been invited to participate.
We have not.
In the parade.
In the 7 years I've been doing this, we have not.
So I wanted to invite, or see if you wanted to participate in the parade. Ceremony, whatever.
Supposed to be walking in a parade.
I personally will not be here.
In the car.
What date is this?
December 3rd, Saturday.
December 3rd.
I'm sorry, who was that said he would not be available?
I will not be available. Brandon Bemis.
Which means we always have to have these special meetings and try to figure out how to get them to fit in. And I wanted Tanya to be here, part of this conversation, because she needs to be at these meetings as well. So if you're thinking about moving from a Monday to like the first and third Tuesdays or something, that doesn't work.
I can't do Tuesdays.
My only comment is no Fridays, please.
I can't do Wednesdays.
And I can't do Thursdays.
So Mondays, Thursdays. All right, I just wanted everybody to have that opportunity to make that.
Later. Start at 5:30. I don't know how you guys feel.
That would be way better for me. I leave work early every time to be here.
It's tight to be here by 5.
Yeah.
I'll make you.
I'd like to make it about 2 in the afternoon, that way no one shows up.
Again, you too.
Long day.
Guys,
I've already asked Michael.
Volunteers here.
I still like 5. I got little people and, you know, half of them are gonna, or 2/3 of them are gonna be in bed when I get home. So, I mean, not that this is a normal night, but
But we've had nights go to 9 o'clock before, and if we start later, that means
9:30.
either we back up Donna with fewer cases per evening, or we just suck it up and we're here later.
President's Day.
Lose your holidays.
We're at the 2nd and the 16th of January?
Yeah, like Martin Luther King or
Or
something.
yeah,
because it's my birthday.
Hooray.
So we're
29
good in
again.
March and April, and May, and then we lose June. We lose one in September. Yeah, I think we're okay.
Okay,
January is bad.
so do we need to make a motion to approve the 2023 meeting calendar as presented? Yes? Would somebody like to do that, please?
Oh, I thought you
7 to 8.
did.
I don't think I can make a motion, can I? Yeah. I'm not supposed to do undue influence.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2023 calendar as presented.
All right, there's motion,
Second.
there's a second. All in favor? Yes?
Yes.
I didn't get
Opposed?
skunked, good.
All right. Keith's batting 1,000. All right, moving on to reports.
I thought he was gonna like snap a gavel and call it good.
Donna, we have reports?
Yeah, so, city council is, they met on the Madison capital zone map amendment. Public hearing was at the last city council meeting, and it was tabled for discussion. It would have gone to Tuesday, tomorrow night meeting, but it's election day and hope everybody goes out and votes.
Been there, done that.
So, it's been moved to Monday, the 14th. Public hearing, deliberation, not public hearing, just deliberation.
The rest of their delivery.
Right, so, pretty much lots of moving parts, and so, yeah. Anyway, so that meeting is at, having an
Executive session at 5.
right, and then a regular meeting at 6. And then, there was a request by city council to look at our standards of approval in a workshop. And so they're going to have that on Monday evening, the regular meeting at 6, so like 7:15.
Yes, I will.
So 5 o'clock on the 10th, Thursday, this Thursday, 5 PM.
5:30 is a workshop.
Oh, 5:30.
That we send out invitations to everybody to, and Melinda called and sent more to, we'll follow up with where that's located.
Did I hear 6 o'clock on the 14th?
7.
The meeting starts at 6. You guys can come around 7:15. You're welcome to come at 6, but you don't need.
7:15 it is.
Yeah.
This is with city council, right? 8. Just kidding.
And Monday, the 21st is a problem.
All right, and then this Thursday, 5:30. And that workshop's with regional housing, so it's more of just them talking to us about the development of the area. It's not.
And I've already confirmed I'm not going to be here this Thursday.
Okay. All right, any other reports or things that we need to talk about?
No, we will have a, I think we have a public hearing, but there's, no, I don't think so. I'll let you know what the rest of that meeting looks like for December. We may not have a meeting.
Okay,
Possible. Just don't know for sure.
I'm gonna call this meeting adjourned then.
Sweet.